Hey folks, Peter here. Thank you for joining me once again in the series where we go through and explore owning a 3D printer. So this is part 2 or episode 2. We have the printer built and now we're going to go through just some basic stuff here, leveling the bed and loading the filament and then doing our first test print. So let's get into it. So here I've got the printer in front of me. I have it facing me this time instead of you guys, so I can actually see some stuff on the screen here a little bit easier. Made sure my voltage was right, obviously, as you saw in the last one, 115. And I've gone ahead and I've gone to the website for Creality, and I've downloaded and installed the latest firmware. I'm not really covering that because all you do is literally put it on your micro SD card, take off the other bin file, .bin, put this one on, plug it in, turn it on. It flashes itself, loads it all in, and you're good to go. So what I'm going to do here today is I'm going to start off by doing a level of the bed, and that's adjusting. There's 4 of these knobs, 2 in the back, 2 in the front, and we're going to level them using some feeler gauges. If you don't have one of these, they say you can use like a post-it note or a piece of paper. And basically all you do is you're going to take that and just stick it underneath the nozzle so that it kind of has a little bit of a feel, a little bit of a drag, but you don't want it ripping the paper or leaving a big scratch in it or anything. I've got a feeler gauge here, and I'm using 0.102 millimeters, which is roughly the size of a piece of paper. Does the same exact thing. I wipe the oil off. Just a little more accurate, I guess. You go into the menu with this firmware, I guess. So you start at the main screen, press the button, prepare, auto home, does what it just did. And then you go down a little bit and it says disable steppers. So right now, this doesn't move. Disable steppers. I can move the Y-axis and the X-axis here. Take your feeler gauge, line up your hot end, the corner of the bed here. And I just want to slide it in, and I'm going to turn these knobs so that it's just touching on the feeler gauge here. And I can start to feel it right there, so I can go ahead. And I'm going to move to this back corner next. It's a little bit harder for me because I have to get my hands back here, but hopefully you can kind of see what I'm talking about. Here we go, this one I'll do with this hand so you can kind of see what I'm doing here. I'm just passing this under. And you'll know it's too tight if you can't get the feeler gauge or the piece of paper back under. So that passes under just fine. And then I'm just going to double check. Okay, and you want to do it a couple of times because adjusting one in one corner is going to affect the other corners. So just do it a couple times and try to get it close as you can. Now these are stock springs on here, the silver springs, whatever you want to call them, and those are probably going to be one of the first upgrades that I do before anyone even tells me. I found a kit online with the springs, a new tube, the Bowden tube here, and then this part here, the extruder. This is plastic parts and you can swap those out for metal parts. Apparently it works better, so it comes in a bundle kit, so I might as well do it. So now I'm going to load up my filament and I think I'm ready to do my first print. I'm going to go ahead and prepare the printer and just heat up, preheat the PLA the hot end here. So it's gonna fire up everything here and start doing that. And I've got my filament loaded up on the roller here. And I saw in one of the videos what you want to do. I don't have the cutter. This came with a wire cutter, but I don't have it handy. So I'm just going to use this Leatherman that I do have handy. You want to cut your filament at an angle. Apparently cutting your filament at an angle helps it feed in better. So I'm back at the main screen and control, filament. So I'm sitting here and I'm holding this filament, and I don't know if I did something wrong with this firmware update. This is directly from the Creality website, and I think I've got the right one. Everything else is functioning so far, but I don't see any option to load the filament or anything. So I might have goofed something up. I'm not sure. I'll have to look into that. But since I'm sitting here, I'm going to go into the move axis and use the extruder, and I'm going to move the axis of the extruder while I try to feed in the filament. Okay, that should be feeding itself now. Should be. Oh, yep, I can see it. I can see it going through there. Is there a way for me to do this manually? Because this has a long way to go. There we go. Okay. So I think I have that pushed in all the way now. I'm sure this looks great from your end, but I'm kind of doing this on the fly now. Okay, I do have filament coming out the end here. So I'm going to take that to mean that everything is loaded as it should be. And I mean, the worse I do on this first print, this first attempt, the more progress I can make. So think about it that way. So I'm going to go ahead and select this object that I wanted to print, which is obviously the benchy boat that everyone's seen. And we're just going to see what happens. And it's going to heat up the bed here. I didn't heat up the bed yet. This just feels like a giant magnet with some plastic on the top. I don't know if that's... I should get some other beds. If you guys have some options for me, let me know. Brands, different companies, I don't know what's out there. Glass, I've seen that you can get glass, or just various everythings. Just gotta let this bed get hot, I guess. And then I'm gonna let this run. I'm not gonna film it because that's gonna take, I think it was marking it on the slicer software as like an hour or so for the print. So I don't wanna be recording that long. But we're gonna see how it turns out. Again, this is just first steps. I know there's some other calibrations I can do. The E steps, the extruder steps. There's a test you can do to extrude 100 millimeters of filament, and then you can measure it to see what it's done and if it's actually gotten to 100 millimeters or not. Okay, this should be getting heated up now, and we should start moving soon. Well, it's going to do the auto home. Alright, so now it's going to do the first pass on the side here. This is kind of like a nozzle cleaner, at least that's what I feel it is. And so far, I mean, it's moving. And the filament here is actually like a dark purple. I don't know if you guys can see that. Alright, so the first print on this machine just wrapped up, and you know, it started out pretty good. And then, well, this happened. I don't know if you guys can see that. So I had left the room to go do whatever, because I wasn't about to watch this for an hour and a half or whatever it was. Now, I will say the part that it did do, down here, it did alright, but up here, obviously, you can see some mistakes going on right there. And I'm going to go ahead and actually just move this camera so you can get a close-up look, and you can see what I mean. So as you guys can see, there's just this tangled mess right here. So what happened actually is the print had dislodged itself from the bed, and the nozzle just kind of pushed it out of the way, but it doesn't know where this is. It just prints in a coordinate of X, Y, and Z. So with this pushed out of the way, this is just dumping filament in the air like that, and you get this. So we'll ignore that for now. Overall, it looks pretty good on the hull here. This on the bottom looks all right, I suppose. Maybe a little far away from the print bed with the nozzle there. I watched a video going over how to use this as a diagnosis tool. So it looks like maybe the nozzle is a little bit far away. Not by much, but I can see individual filament passes there. The side, I mean, this looks pretty decent. It did curl also. I don't know if you can see that, how it's kind of rocking. It did curl up. I looked that up too. So the bed is at a temperature of 40 degrees Celsius. And my house is a little bit colder. And that offset of temperature just means that it cools faster on the top. And it just lifted it up from the plate a little bit. That's something I can fix pretty easily. Some other stuff here, if you look, you can see there's all these little stringy bits. Well, here, let's just get this out of the way. So if you look up here, you can see all these stringy bits crisscrossing every which way. That is the extruder, the retraction. So it's not pulling the filament back away fast enough. So there's still a little bit on the nozzle as it moves over, and it just pulls it and strings it across. I can see on the back, there is a word there, 3D Benchy. I think it's hashtag 3D Benchy, if I recall. You can kind of see that. Overall, I mean, it looks pretty accurate. Nothing looks misshapen. The symmetry is pretty good. Just that stringing from the extrusion, and then it just pulled off the base. So we get that. I would say for first print, that's not too bad. Well, I think that's going to do it here for this episode of the 3D printer series / journey, whatever you want to call this. I don't think it turned out too terribly. Again, I mean, that kind of stringy mishap, and then the retraction on the extruder. That's all stuff that's easily fixed. Otherwise, I think it turned out pretty decent. I mean, I don't know what I'm looking for, what I'm not fully looking for, but I know these things I can fix. So we'll save that for the next episode. I'll do some more calibration. I know I can do one with the extruder. I did hear it kind of skipping teeth a little bit, like it wasn't fully gripping right. Maybe there's some adjustments I can make on there. And like I said, I think I'm going to go ahead and get the metal extruder kit, as well as new springs for the bed and a new Bowden tube. Apparently this one, the internal diameter is a little bit wider, so the filament has some wiggle room, and that can kind of give you some errors. So I'm going to go ahead and get those parts ordered. If there are some other parts that you want me to check out, other mods I could be looking at, things I can print myself for this machine, let me know. Leave it down in the comment below. Give the video a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys next time.